Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments on bicycle travel adventures. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshifted.net/406, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshifted.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 406th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, part 4 of the Lake Ontario 2025 adventure, this portion of the trip was always going to be a gigantic question mark. What kind of biking will there be? Will it be fun? Will I be looking too much ahead to the more obviously notable places like Toronto and Niagara Falls? Well, Wolfe Island once again answers the call. Good morning from Wolfe Island, Ontario, Canada, and the beginning of day 3. It is another unusually late start, but just given my situation, it fits. Today, I have decided, after looking at my various options, that the options are, I don't want to say limited, but I don't know what I don't know. So I figured I would go with what I do know, and that is Wolfe Island. And so there is another ride that will take me from here to the western side of the island, which should have a beautiful view. I think it's called Sandy Point. It replicates a piece of the ride I did yesterday, but then it goes out. Instead of going to the south side of the island, it goes to the west side. And I think that looks really good. The plan for this ride, it is very sunny out. It's still pleasant. It's pleasantly warm. The sun is my enemy, as you all know. But I think this is not going to be a terribly long ride, nor is it going to have hills or any real exposure. I'll bring better selection of water this time. I will do the e-bike again, just because I am a little time limited with the ferry schedule. I would normally give this a much more casual kind of a ride scenario. I think I am going to tempt the bicycling gods by not bringing my full toolkit. It just doesn't seem to be terrifically necessary. Now, ask me again in a few segments if I'm stranded somehow and I'm pushing my bike back, missing the ferry, how good of an idea that is. All right, power up. And power up. Hey, look at me actually doing it right this time. Okay, folks, off we go. We're just starting off on pedal assist 1. I think I'm going to go past the ferry just to see if there's any indicator of how one lines up. I may be early anyways. I'm literally a block from where you go in. All right, Big Sandy Bay. That's where I'm going. See a sign? So that's good. What a really interesting, idyllic place. Oh, deer. I forgot to mention yesterday, there's a whole herd of deer that I just couldn't get a picture of. There's a solitary deer just running around in the fields here. That's nice. I took a different road. I took the direct connect with this main road from town rather than the one by my hotel, as evidenced by the fact that I saw the ferry line up. And it is gentle but uphill slope, which of course I'm not even feeling at all because of the e-assist. Going 16 miles per hour up this grade and going a little bit faster than that now. Wind is pretty good. It's hard to tell whether it's the wind that you get from going 18 miles per hour or if it's a headwind too, but again, e-assist, it doesn't really matter, which is fun. And it looks like this could be it. Now I'm gonna have to pull over and stop. Wolfe Island Baseline Road is the name of this one. A ton of cows right here on mounds of something that may or may not be dirt. Okay, let's see. Is this the one that I want? It is. It can be. It could be. Yeah, why not? Let's go out that way. It is not paved, so this being a mountain bike with a front suspension is even more handy. Boy, it just handles us. It's so nice to be on wide tires. But I can't see, this is very similar to what the towpath is, or various towpaths that we've chronicled on this pod. A fine limestone, but yeah, you could tell I'm going about, now I'm on a flat going 17. I think if I was on pavement, on asphalt, I'd be going 20. So it is an interesting thing. What's the use case, or what am I trying to accomplish? Am I trying to accomplish speed? I'd have to go up another e-assist to give the same effort and get to 20. Or do I maintain this and just go a little slower? It's a classic e-bike range conundrum. Of course, I do not have range concerns, so I think we could just pump it to e-assist 4. It is pretty wild how fast I can go. Now it's a little bit of a downhill grade, so I think I'll go back to 3. So I'm definitely starting to feel the winds in my face from this direction, and it's noticeably cooler as I point towards the water, so no question this is coming off the lake. Oh, and speaking of the conversation last night, there wasn't like an obvious consensus of where the river ends and the lake begins, but it's interesting because maps will say on the south side of the island, between that closed but maybe coming back US ferry, that's the St. Lawrence River. So you would think that on the north side of the island, between here and Kingston, it would be the same. It is unlabeled. But this is the last of the Thousand Islands, Wolfe Island is. And I think that it is very clear that what I'm about to be looking at out here is Lake Ontario, because there are no more Thousand Islands and it's open water. So this is going to be yet another Lake Ontario view that the bike is affording me the ability to see. So yay for that. All right, I am going to, since we've been going for a while, I'm going to give you a pause, and then we will rejoin a little bit later in the ride. A little bit further down, and the beautiful, almost tropical colors of the lake here. There's a little bay, but beyond it you can see the deep blue of Lake Ontario itself. A little turnout here. I think I scared somebody. We'll get a little picture here. Let's get our friends I've been doing this lately where I do a zoomed in so I can get stuff in the distance a little bit better. There we go. Some more of the windmills. You can hear the seagulls, hopefully. I don't have the noise canceling on so that you can hear some of the stuff a little bit better. I get a little closer to the lake, or the bay. We'll call this the bay. See if we can hear the waves lapping. Just gently, ever so gently. Absolutely stunning. All right, off we go. Canadian flags flying here today. Canada Day is in about a month. July 1st, always conveniently close to the US's Independence Day, is Canada Day, which celebrates their less violent separation from England. Big Sandy Bay, 0.9 kilometers. That's about a half mile for those of us who are more used to the other system. Oh, it looks like there's another good sign here. That is a private oh, see, that's smart. It's a private road, and they make a very prominent sign saying, this is not the road you're looking for, people. Keep going down this way. Big Sandy Bay. What I saw might have been Little Sandy Bay because it was little, but with the name Sandy in there, one would maybe hope that we get a sand beach, which are, as we've discovered already, not uncommon on the American side of the lake, but not everywhere. Lake Ontario is very interesting with its beachfronts. My soon-to-be mother's former home was up on a bit of a bluff, or is on a bit of a bluff, and it's very rocky. But you don't have to go more than a few miles to Charlotte and then Hamlin to the west, and that is all sand. So I've been finding that to be the case here in Canada too. It's a mix. So as we make our way west for the first time soon, we've heretofore gone east and north. Perhaps things will be different, but it'll be fun to check it all out. That, of course, will be later this episode as we do it. Now, it looks like it's gated. Oh, interesting. There's an entrance fee, and I have no cash on me. Arriving by bicycle boat. I technically owe $10 here. And it appears that bikes are prohibited. Yes. Okay. This is all very interesting. I think we'll do a staff are maintaining the beach. Swim at your own risk. There is no can or bottle ban, however, you must carry out what you bring in. See, I feel like that's a good, responsible setup here. Now, the question ends up being, do I have time to hike down there? Let's take a little time check here. I have an hour until my ferry leaves, so I think I'm gonna pass on this, but put Big Sandy Bay on the list of things to do next time I'm on Wolfe Island, for sure. And now, let's do a little more of a scenic loop back to town. I think that sounds pretty good. Yeah, island living, again, to go to some of the conversations I was having with folks, they are literally a free ferry to a pretty decent sized city of Kingston, Ontario. So everything that you want or need is there, but you're so beholden to the ferry schedule, or the boat as they colloquially refer to it, which I think is fun. Because there's just not a lot on the island. There's what I would call a bodega, which they probably don't. It's a beer store, which is a thing here in Canada. You have to be effectively licensed by the province to sell beer. So that's important, of course. But yeah, the restaurant that was part of the hotel, and now the cafe, it changes colors based on the time of day. It's a cafe this morning, and it's a fancy pants restaurant as the season progresses. Here we are in what I would call summer, or post Memorial Day US, and that is a summer situation, but they are still not quite opened up for that season here. So Canada a little more compressed, Northern New York a little more compressed seasons, just because, hey, weather realism. Last week was really rainy and cold, so there was nobody wanted to come and spend time outside. That's actually something I think I forgot to mention. Boy, did I get lucky with weather. Although I prefer a good cold not cold, but like a cool riding conditions, and certainly had that on day one. A few days before that was rain and cold, and much colder. It was a very like early spring kind of weather around here, around Western New York at least. And yeah, that would have been far less fun. So interesting. I thought that this was, I don't want to say late in the season, but I certainly didn't consider it early in the cycling season. But I am learning it very much is. So if you are looking to do something similar to this route, you may want to consider doing it in June, I think, and perhaps a little bit later. It depends on how much heat and crowds you like, because the further into the summer you get, the more people there will be. And I will say, I rather enjoy having the roads to myself. It's been really nice. But yeah, I haven't seen any other cyclists really out there while I've been driving. So yeah, it's a little early yet, I think, in the season. But today's glorious. Today is great. No complaints at all. All right, I'm gonna continue on this looping return that'll get me back to the car probably within the next, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. And then I can get lined up properly. I am not gonna be closed out of this ferry. I don't wanna have to wait an extra 80 minutes like I did on the way onto the island. Yeah, and then it's just a question of, all right, what's next? I do have, as I mentioned, I think before, another ferry that I plan to take because of the route I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna go on the 401, which is the main east-west thoroughfare. I'm gonna hew to as closely as to what I would have biked as I possibly can. And that will put me on another free vehicle ferry. I think it gets me to, is it Prince Edward? I believe it might be Prince Edward or something like that, another town, and we're in solid cottage country at that point. And that'll be the case all the way until the end of my day today. All right, much more to come as we wrap up this first ride on day 3. So I took a little bit more of a loop back to the eastern side of the island, and it was almost all on, I'll call dirt road, but towpath surface, and it just turned to paved, which tells me also the fact that I see no more. I'm about to pass the last of my windmills here on my left. We must be getting close to town. So chalk one, another ride up for crazy e-bike efficiencies. Density of homes is starting to pick. Must be a fascinating place to live. Clearly agriculture is a huge part, but the town's got some services too, of course. And I get the impression that there's a lot of cottage living here. And some people from the States apparently also have homes here. That's an interesting question about how Canada deals with that. Now, of course, these folks could have dual citizenship, and then, of course, less of a question mark for me, at least. Yeah, but I am curious because it is. I've always loved me some Canada, and I believe you can do up to 6 months per year with a U.S. passport. You can be here, but I'd have to double check on that. Here's a new one, new, beautifully constructed, more modern-looking home like that. And that's right here as the road curves here. I'll bet this is the main drag. Yeah. So that's the first/last one on the edge of town, I suspect. Someone's flying a Toronto Maple Leafs flag. If things did not end terribly good for them this year again. They haven't won the Stanley Cup despite being arguably the best funded team in the league by a lot for many a year before I was born. Much to the consternation of Maple Leafs fans. But that person is still sticking with them. Good for them. Never been much of a Leafs fan myself. I'm noticing that I'm yelling a lot. You don't hear the wind in my ears that I do. And I'm starting to realize that as I ride I don't need to scream for you to be able to hear me with this microphone setup, which is not what I'm used to. So maybe I'll just modulate my voice a little bit and just assume for the best rather than scream, which is something you've probably been used to for literally years as I ride. All right, in any event, I think we'll close this portion of the ride right now because I'm definitely getting there, because once I get to the vehicle, I'm gonna be packing up and we'll be making some big ticket pack up situations. That is a sentence that makes no sense, but hopefully you understand. I will be packing up and getting ready for the ferry, and then we continue the adventure for day 3. From Bath, Ontario, Canada, and a beautiful spot here on the lake, looking out at a different island than Wolfe Island, but similar windmills and cottages and whatnot. But I stopped here specifically because I was in the mood for poutine and found this place, which was really highly regarded, out on Route 33, which was my bike route. And it's literally a little tin shack, for lack of a better way of putting it, no disrespect, but it's right here on the lake. There were bike lanes, and I do think that it wouldn't have been too terrible to get out. The route that I took out was different than I would have biked. I think I would have just hugged the water and been on more local streets. I didn't get on the 401, but I was still on Stroads, for lack of a better way of putting it. And eventually got onto this route, which is, I think, Ontario Route 33, or Provincial Route 33. And it's fine. There's a nice shoulder, and speeds are reasonable, and traffic is light. Light is maybe overstating it, but it's lighter. And and then finding this little poutine shack was fantastic. It's called Fryway 33. Just absolutely great. Not as good as Montreal, but also way better than what I can get in the States. Yay. That was definitely the way to go. Very excited about that. I'm going to keep continuing tracing this route until we get to the ferry. We'll go on the ferry, and then I think I've got time, I know I have time, to go to another kind of Lake Ontario lookout. There are several provincial parks, but I like these kind of little spots where you can just kind of park and walk to the lake. I don't necessarily need a provincial park to get the vibes, and particularly something that would have been available to me while I was on a bike, I think is what I want to do. So I'll do that, maybe get some more pictures, hang out for a little bit, and then work my way to, I believe it's is it Colburn or Colberg? I always forget. There are 2 towns that have very similar names, and let's figure this out real quick. Colburn is where I'll be, and it's just a little Airbnb apartment. It actually looks really nice, and it's basically advertised for truckers as an overnight stay. So there's a kind of a local truck stop kind of diner and a Tim Hortons nearby, and all of which I can get to by bicycle if I so choose, or potentially even walk or drive. But yeah, so I've got limited dining options tonight, but honestly, just eating that big poutine, that's going to get me through for at least a few more hours for sure. And you could do a lot worse than a Tim Hortons, let's just put it that way. But I will check out that little diner too. Who knows? That could be really good. So that is the plan for the remainder of the day. I'll chime in here on the pod just a couple of times. I think I'm going to leave that ride as the big ride of the day. I may chime in with a couple of other, hey, this is a cool spot kind of a thing before I close out day 3. A really fun day, a little bit of, it's almost like day 2.5 because it was the island again. But I am enjoying seeing what this additional 3rd day of riding it would look like. And getting out of Kingston definitely is a good thing. But yeah, it gets real tranquil real quick. And it's really beautiful. It's a Tuesday. And there are a couple of sailboats out, a couple of folks fishing. But otherwise, a pretty quiet day on the water. And it's gorgeous weather. I think summer is about to begin up here. And I think a lot more people will be coming once the weather gets more consistently like this. All right, much more to come. From the Glenora ferry, very short and much smaller ferry, but it is just a glorious, beautiful day here on the lake. And this will take me to point, it's essentially a peninsula. I won't have to take a ferry off of this. Actually, I shouldn't speak so quickly. There may be a bridge, but I do know that I can drive off of where I'm coming here. So this will be the last ferry that I take that I know of, at least. And once we get further west of here, the island situation really dies down. So yeah, this is the beginning of the end of another phase of this trip. But I will be able to go out to a particular point. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. It is Long Point is where I'm going. And it should take me just a bit to get there. And I'm excited about that because it'll be one last kind of look back towards the islands, looking east. And then I'll be continuing. As mentioned before, this is the first day where I'm going west. And again, from a biking perspective, it's just really fantastic. Once out of Kingston, just nice, big, wide shoulder, really well paved. It's good. So yeah, we definitely have found that there's a friction point about crossing the border, but if you can solve for that, if the ferry is there, that doesn't exist right now, or is closed for the moment, this is just a tremendous trip. All right, just like that, we're almost to the dock. Yeah, probably one more entry for here on day 3 when we go out to Long Point and get a nice little look at things. But yeah, definitely bike-friendly, this ferry, everything about it. It is pretty fantastic. It's part of the Loyalist Parkway. There's some capital H history around here that I don't know, so I should probably look it up. Maybe later. From Lake on the Mountain. A very apropos place. It is elevated quite a bit. We're on a big bluff looking out on Lake Ontario. And I've decided that I'd rather just do this as my spot here rather than drive all the way out to that point. This is just as good. I can't imagine the other place being any better. And this is pretty great. And it was literally within a few minutes after exiting the ferry, which was delightful. I'm a big fan of ferries. I'll be in Seattle later this year, and hopefully we'll be doing some ferries just for the sake of doing ferries. Vehicle, passenger, bike, it doesn't matter. Love me some ferries. Yeah, I think we're going to call this as the end of day 3, with the likelihood of further biking unlikely. This has been another fun day. This was a day where I wasn't sure if the vibes would be as fun or as good, but of course, starting on Wolfe Island made it fun and great. A big takeaway for this on day 3 is my confidence level on this bike has gone way, way up. You may recall part 1 that I have no confidence in this thing. Now that I know it was just a simple magnet, I think that my confidence level has definitely gone back up on this bike. There are some things that need to be tweaked for the comfort level on it, but I tell you what, the ability to do 15 or 20 miles on this bike and just have it feel like it's nothing really speaks to the ability for the range on this thing to be fantastic. So I'm just really very pleased. In a way, this has turned out to be Shakedown Ride Part 2. I think there's a lot to be said about this bike, now that I don't hate it again. All right, from the end of day 3, we'll be in Colborne, Ontario tonight. And next week for you, tomorrow for me, it might be raining. Could be some weather, but we're going to end up in Toronto, and the ability to see Toronto bike is really exciting to me. The island, everything. This is a city that has meant a lot to me through the years, and I'm very excited to be seeing it in a very different way, the way I like to at the speed of bike. Statistics. Miles biked, about 15. Poutine stops, 1. Number of stars for the Poutine stop, 44. It was stellar. Ferries ferried, 2. Flats, 0.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.